From Variety, celebrating more than 118 years covering the business of entertainment, this is the Award Circuit Podcast. When I'm a Virgo creator Boots Riley approached Jerome about playing a 13-foot teenager, Jerome wasn't quite sure what to expect.
How are you gonna do this? How is this gonna get done? My main question was the trick of my height. How you're gonna make me look like a giant, and what would that require of me? But he said he's gonna do it all practical. He's going to not use any CGI or real special visual effects. He's gonna do everything like they did it in The Lord of the Rings or in Elf. That's why he brought the figurines. That's why he brought the little, he was like, this is why I have these dolls, because I have to make this make sense for you. So he kind of used his fingers like a V and used it as a camera, and he would show me how he was gonna use my body, and based off of camera angles and measurements and maybe using miniature dolls around me and miniature set pieces around me, he's gonna make me look like a giant. Come on.
I'm Michael Schneider, and on this episode of the award-winning Variety Award Circuit Podcast, we talk to I'm a Virgo star Jerome about playing a giant, working with Boots Riley, and his music career. Also on this episode, we chat with Fargo executive producer Noah Hawley about his series Standout Season 5. It's all next on this edition of the Variety Award Circuit Podcast. Stay close. The Amazon Prime Video series I'm a Virgo follows 19-year-old Cootie, played by Jerome, who's a 13-foot tall giant. He ends up under attack when the city of Oakland learns about his existence. I'm a Virgo examines themes of capitalism, poverty, and police brutality, and its effects on the black community, while using fantasy elements to tell its story. After Cootie escapes from the safe world of his home, where his parents have been protecting him, Cootie experiences the real world for the first time. Along the way, he makes new friends, including Jones, played by Kara Young, a staunch leftist. As part of his journey, Cootie, who just wants to be treated like a normal person, begins to search for ways to use his size in the fight against the evils of capitalism.
Hey, yo, I'm gonna just ask what we all thinking. Why you so damn big, bro?
Facts. I started to think maybe my size is a sign.
Yeah, it says step back, bitches.
It's a signal to do something important.
Important like an overdue bill or...
Important like the hero. What'd you say your name was again?
Joan.
Hey, yo, the hero locked my cousin up for selling weed without a license, bro.
Well, why was he doing that?
It was either for shits and giggles or rent money. I should ask him.
You guys want to see me bench press the Caprice? Power is something, exercise, that's put into action.
Ooh, cold.
Yep.
Power exists only when it's put into action. It sounds pretty, but useless for actual organizing.
Okay, hey, we got to cut, y'all.
You have to leave now?
Just hit the sideshow with us.
Yeah.
I don't know. My mother, she says people get
Hey,
crazy.
but the whole hood love you. They already got your T-shirts on.
For real?
The world is not ready yet.
I don't want nobody to see your big ass. Because if they see you, they're going to try to get the people.
Gotta wait till your 21st birthday.
Well, I'm a Virgo, and Virgos love adventure.
Facts.
Let's go. Let's go.
We showing up with it.
Variety's Jazz Tanke recently sat down with Jerome, whose credits include When They See Us and Concrete Cowboy. He admitted that he was both scared and excited by the prospect of his I'm a Virgo character. He talked about acting opposite Walton Goggins, who plays the hero, a sinister vigilante who he goes toe-to-toe with. And he talks about his other love, making music. They began by discussing what it was like to first hear from Boots Riley about this most unusual project.
I've told this story a couple of times just on different interviews. It's my favorite story to tell because it's the craziest way I found out about this. He emailed me personally. So I woke up one morning to an email from Boots Riley, and the title of the email was 13-foot tall black man in Oakland. That's it. That was the title of the email.
And you opened it?
I open it and I'm like, all right, this is Boots Riley. This is the wildest title to an email I've seen. I don't know what he's talking about. And exactly like the title says, he's talking about a show that he wants to center around a 13-foot tall black man living in Oakland. And I didn't have to read the rest of the email to want to get on the phone or meet with him. Like a week later, he came to the hotel I was at a week later with the briefcase and little figurines of my characters and the characters around me, and painted this entire world for me and said that it's the wildest thing he's ever thought of, and he wants to just put it into fruition. And I was like, if anyone's going to do it, it's this man, this crazy man right here. So it's crazy.
I love that he came to your hotel room, like ready with models.
Ready. I was just honored for him to have me in mind. He thought of me before anything else, and he wanted me to bring it to life with him. So I'm like, all right, how serious is this guy? Like, is this a real project? Because I can't even imagine it even being a thing. So for him to come to me personally, sit me down, and have this entire presentation in front of me, I knew he was so serious, and I knew he was going to not only build the world, but want to flesh the world out completely, because he had it fleshed out in his mind already before Amazon was involved, before producers were involved, anybody. And so I'm just like, I couldn't even eat my food. I had eggs in front of me. I'm like, I'm just going to keep these eggs right here, because this guy, he's just blowing my mind. And I think what appealed to me the most about it all was me wondering how he was going to get it done. And for me, I'm like blessed to be in a position where I can be selective with the things I want to do. And my selectivity comes from it having to challenge me and it having to push me. And I can see in him how much this was going to push him and challenge him. So I'm like, all right, bet, let's do this. Because if this is going to be a challenge for you, it must be a challenge for me. So that's kind of what excited me the most.
I love that, because if you hear Boots speak, or if you're in his presence, his energy, his, his passion, especially for this project, what questions did you have for him?
How are you going to do this? How is this going to get done? My main question was the trick of my height, how you're going to make me look like a giant, and what would that require of me? So had he said something like, well, CGI, it probably wouldn't have excited me as much, because then the challenge is kind of gone. Because then, okay, so you're telling me I'm just going to stand in front of a green screen and I'll just be me, and you'll just make me look big. And that would have been cool, but he said he's going to do it all practical. He's going to not use any CGI or real special visual effects. He's going to do everything like they did it in The Lord of the Rings or in Elf. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? That's why he brought the figurines. That's why he brought the little, he was like, this is why I have these dolls, because I have to make this make sense for you. So he kind of used his fingers like a V and used it as a camera. And he would show me how he was going to use my body, and based off of camera angles and measurements, and maybe using miniature dolls around me and miniature set pieces around me, he's gonna make me look like a giant. And so, come on, I'm like, okay, again, how the hell are you gonna do that? And so the confidence he had just made me confident, and thinking about shooting it practical scared me and excited me. Like I said, the challenge. So fast forward doing it, I didn't look at any of my scene partners in the eyes at all for any of the scenes. I had to either look at an X mark for an eye line, or a miniature doll that they designed, so it looked like it was a mini version of them, and they would shoot behind the miniature doll's back, and you would think that it was them, but it's really just regular 5'8" me looking down at these little dolls, and it's giving the illusion that I'm this giant. And if a scene on average would take 2 hours, for us it was taking 5 to 6 hours just to get it done and get it right, because it was such specific math that had to be done. And you have double the crew on set, because you got all these puppeteers and all these visual effects guys and all these guys with measuring tapes. Like, no, he has to look down this way because the eye line would be right here. So make sure the X tape is the tape mark is right here. Then you make sure there's another tape mark over there, because when they move in the middle of the scene, his eyes are going to have to travel this way. So this is all happening while I'm sitting right there, like,
it's wild.
Yeah, waiting for action. And so on action, the lines have to be in my head, the choices have to be in my head, the character has to be in my head, and then where I have to look and where I cannot look has to be in my head, and where I can't move my body. So it was like a Tour de France type of experience for me. It's like boxing. And so I'm happy he let me do that, because now I tell you what, any other set I'm on is going to be a piece of cake for me. As long as I can look in your eyes, we're gonna smash it out the park. So it was really hard knowing how well I was doing without connecting with anybody.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, you watch the show and, the first thing was like, how did he do this? Mm-hmm. And then the fact that it was all done practical makes such a difference for you to connect with the characters that you're watching. Mm-hmm. But also, like, the fact that he pulled this off as a testament to like
It's
the performance, his vision, the production design, right, of those sets being like miniature sets or whatever, and then the costumes too.
Yeah, all the way down to the costume department, all the way down to the hair department. What made sense? What is Cootie's hair like if he's that big, you know?
Yeah.
It was an army on set, and everybody had to be all hands on deck thinking. So it was scary, honestly, like, to be honest with you.
But, you know, you pulled it off too, because something that I really loved about the show and your performance is your facial expression. Like you said, like, you're not, you know, with this show, like, you're not eye to eye with somebody, or it's your own, it's your own thing. You're up there, like, and so watching that expression, like, talk about getting inside the mind of I mean, we've all been 13, right? But talk about getting inside the mind of Cootie and this,
excuse me,
and this,
in this world. Yeah. I guess there were a couple steps there were false steps I took to try to get to Cootie. So I had no idea what I was going to do at first, and all I was focused on was this man's height. I was just focused on 13 feet. I'm like, all right, I'm embody tall, embody big, embody giant. Maybe the insecurities a really tall person has. I don't know. Do they have insecurities? You know? And so while I'm going back and forth trying to decide what that mind frame is, I was wrong the whole time. And I talked to Boots about it. And I'm like, Boots, you know, I'm thinking this, I'm thinking that. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. The last thing Cootie thinks about is his height. He wakes up every day already 13 feet tall. The way anybody who has something that feels different about them, they're so used to it because that's what they're used to. And so that was actually the wittiness in the title is I'm a Virgo. The title could have been I'm 13 feet tall. It could have been I'm a big black giant living in the hood. But instead it was the little things that made Cootie and the things that he thought about. And what Cootie cared about was the Virgo in him and the human in him. And so once I got rid of the whole notion that it was about embodying somebody big, everything became a bit easier for me. And I started to go into the human of Cootie, and I ignored everything about his height, and I played into his fragility pretty much, and his naivete and how young he is. He's 19 years old, but he's been confined in his life, confined in his home his whole life by his parents. And okay, the thing about that is, right, he wasn't trapped or he wasn't abused. You think of somebody who's been trapped by their parents their whole life to 19. There's a couple movies actually that's about that. And it's a traumatic story. It's this abusive story. And then the kid breaks out like, oh no, this is the world, right? But Cootie didn't experience that. He was well read, well fed, well exercised. You know, like he lived honestly a better life than most people outside got to. And so I had to play into that as well. So for me, it was the childlike wonder. That's why the facial expressions are so insane. I'm kind of, it was very purposeful for me to try to make 5 different facial expressions happen in one moment for him, because that's what a kid does, in my opinion. You know, kids aren't so, kids are geniuses, but not with their words, not verbally yet. So what they do is they'll use their facial expressions and their mannerisms to get what they want all the way since we were babies. We'll cry, we'll complain, we'll move our hands. And by the time you're 12, 13, you're really good at knowing when to cry and when to shake and move your hands. And so for me, it was playing into getting what I want through facial expressions. So even in dynamics where I was talking to my parents, where I was talking to Francine and Martise, I brightened my eyes up a little more to look younger for them, because they want to see that kid. They want to see the baby and Cootie. So my eyes are bright. But when I go hang out with the friends, I'm really trying to play with my eyebrows down a little bit so I could just look a little cooler and a little tougher for my friends. You know, when we're grown adults, we don't do that. We keep one face. We're good at the mask that we have. For Cootie, he didn't know what mask to wear because he never got the chance to figure it out. So that's kind of where I played around with the whole baby faces and the emotions. And Boots really liked it, because I think that was the essence we wanted to capture, is how can we make this big giant feel like a little baby? And he really was, you know? Yeah.
I mean, it's his innocence.
Yeah,
like, you
that's exactly
love
it.
his innocence, and again, you're invested in where he's going. And the one thing I also love is this relationship that he has with Hero. It's such a it's so layered. And again, it's the writing, it's the performance. Like, talk about playing those scenes.
Those scenes with Walton. I agree with you. I love the relationship with the Hero because what Boots is really good at doing is capturing a lot of conversations within one scene or with one moment. You know, that's what makes his project so dense and almost so overwhelming for some audience members, because in a scene he can attack 4 or 5 different topics. With one character he can embody 5 different conversations. And so with the Hero, he was able to talk about everything he wanted to talk about in Virgo with just one character. That's what I loved about the Hero. He was able to talk about capitalism, anti-capitalism, the justice system, power, ego, what it means to be a hero and what it means to be a villain. And that was Cootie's plight the whole time. My question for myself was, am I a good guy? Am I a bad guy? Was I the perfect guy until I came outside and got tainted so bad? Now am I calling myself a villain because I am, or is it because it sounds cool, or is it because that was the confusing thing about Cootie? And I love the writing in that. For the Hero, he was in the same exact problem. It just wasn't so obvious. The Hero did not know how much of a hero he was or how much of a villain he was. And there's a beauty in seeing an evil character not be so evil, which is why I love the ending and the writing, where it's like you just see the baby in him too, you know, and you see the kid in him. So working with Walton was really cool. It was actually interesting because out of all the people in the show, I worked with Walton the least, and I saw him the least. We shot all those scenes maybe in a week, and I shot the rest of the show over a span of 5 months.
Wow.
So that made perfect sense too. I'm doing all these scenes where I'm obsessing over this guy I never even met. I never met Walton. I've only known him from, a lot of his Quentin Tarantino work, because Quentin's my favorite. So I knew a lot of his work from there, and that's all I had in my head. I didn't know who he was as a person, if he was a good guy, a bad guy, if he was anything. And I thought that was really cool because I'm not sure if Boots set it up purposely like that or if that's just how our schedules worked out, but I enjoyed that aspect of it because not knowing him at all, but idolizing this guy was exactly what Cootie was doing. You know, he's idolizing this hero, and his friends around him are like, the hell are you doing, my boy? This is not the person you should be praising. But here he is doing that. And so not knowing Walton in real life got to influence a lot of that performance. Because then I meet him and I'm like, oh. And Walton is very serious guy, very funny guy, but very serious even when he's funny. And he brings a very competitive edge to the set. And so when he brought that randomly after, I'm like, I'm the king of this set. I've been shooting here for 4 or 5 months. This is my show. He shows up and he brings such a fierce professionalism and quality to the character, and it just made it all the better because I'm like, yep, this was the hero the whole time. And so when we do those final scenes at the end, the big battle, I swear that took us 2 hours, the quickest thing. It was in and out, and it was just such a rush, and it was just so much fun. And I think Boots was very clever in casting Walton because Walton is a great actor.
He's a legend. Speaking of Tarantino, what was the first Tarantino film you saw? And did you love his work right away?
Always, since I was a child. Yeah. He was a part of my beginning obsession with film when I was a kid. I got lucky, honestly, and I've watched his movies in order. I saw Reservoir Dogs first. Wow. I definitely saw Reservoir Dogs first because oddly enough, I don't know why, but my middle school was doing a play.
On Res Dogs?
Yeah, I think a clean kid version of Reservoir Dogs somehow. And I went and saw the movie because of it. And
did you audition?
No, when I say a play, I think it was a loose thing. It wasn't like our family came. It was part of this project that we had in class where it was like, do something that's your favorite. And I think some kids just put together like a mock scene of it. Let me not get my middle school in trouble having kids perform Reservoir Dogs. I saw Reservoir Dogs first, and then I saw Pulp Fiction right after. And then after that, it was set for me in terms of what kind of films I loved. Yeah. I think Quentin's one of my favorite because he shaped what kind of films I ended up falling in love with, and that's character-driven films. My favorite films are the ones that are like so about the character. Even if it's the slowest, most boring movie you've ever seen, I'll like the movie because I'm so invested in the one character, you know? Yeah. And so, yeah, I think... And then Martin Scorsese has my favorite movie, though. That's the tricky thing. So I'd say Quentin Tarantino is my favorite director because of the body of work, but Martin Scorsese's The Departed is my favorite movie of all time. I could watch that movie any day, anytime, any feeling, any emotion I'm feeling. I could watch that movie. So it's a little battle between them.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, Scorsese, I mean, I love them both, and I understand. I mean, it's a struggle, right? You're like, hey, this is my favorite director, but my favorite film
is over here.
Yeah. Now, Goodfellas is my favorite Scorsese.
Oh, of course.
Because I watched that in school it's the same thing where you're like, why are you showing kids like
this?
Goodfellas?
Yep. Mm-hmm. My high school showed me all the craziest. I watched The Departed in high school as well. I don't know what these teachers were thinking.
But hey, we turned out okay, so
yeah,
it's not a bad thing. I mean, speaking of that, you've watched some incredible filmmakers, and now you've added, Boots to that. Like, what's the greatest lesson like somebody taught you that you've kind of carried with you, whether it's like onto every project or like just in life, like?
That's a great question. I don't think it'll be so easy like, in this moment for me to single out one director and one piece of information I learned. Like if I went off and thought, I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember when I heard this. But if I can think about how lucky I've been to work with the directors I work with, each of them has taught me something different and new, and they're all so different, but also incredible at what they do. So it's really cool to see the end product all being fantastic and being critically acclaimed, but then seeing the processes that they go through. So I'll give you some examples to make it make more sense. Like Barry Jenkins. That was my first time on a set ever, Moonlight. I was 18. I hadn't been on a commercial. I hadn't been on a short film set. This was the first time I had the action clicker in my face and the lights and all of that. And so when I got there, my idea of a film director was going to be, get over there. We need you. This kind of totalitarian effect. But Barry had his hat backwards and his sandals on and his shorts and his glasses, and he's like, what's up, dude? How you feeling? And he made me feel so comfortable, and working with him was like working with the guy who lived in the dorm room next to me. He was almost like a student filmmaker, and I think that was very purposeful on his end to curate that, especially for the kids on the set. And so from what I learned from him was being able to take the director mask off and be the friend and be the homie to make sure everyone's comfortable, especially with the type of work we did for that project. It took a lot from us, and like it took a lot of vulnerability from us. And so he curated that space, right? Then you have an incredible director like Ava DuVernay, who of course found the friendship there and of course found that bond, but she is a director. She is the captain of a ship and the captain of an army, and is very purposeful on her end, and that power is so inspiring. And so what I learned from her is professionalism, is be on time, is be there when you need to be there and be ready when you need to be ready. And to learn that at a young age was great too. Being on such a Netflix money and it's a big set, and you have someone like Ava who is pushing you to do your best. Not just, she told me, get in the gym, get those lines down, learn the voice. There was even a time I was doing a scene and I thought I was crushing it. She would not let me move on. And after maybe 5 takes, she was like, what's going on? And I'm like, you tell me, because I'm in there. She goes, you're not in there. You're not in there at all. I'm not seeing him. I'm not seeing him at all. And then that took a lot. That scared me. And so I told her, can I get 5 minutes? And I went off and I took the 5 minutes I knew I needed, and I got my ass together and I went back and I did it. And after 2 more takes, she was like, that's it. There it is. Give me another one now. I'm like, oh my goodness, And so that's professionalism. That's learning that. Then you have Boots Riley, who will never say no to an idea. And that's so inspiring. This man will have an idea. He'll say it out loud. everyone will look at him like he's crazy. And then he will execute that idea. And we'll look at him like, wow, that was impressive. And so you learn something from that as well. Then Steve Soderbergh, he shoots really fast and quick. All these different styles and different ways of directing. So I'd say it's not one director who taught me one thing. It's really all of them teaching me these different parts of me.
You look at that. I mean, look at those directors. You've worked with the best.
It's been some great. Yeah, I've been very blessed. It's been purposeful. Been very selective and saying no a lot, which kind of sucks. I want to say a lot more. I got on a call with my manager. I was like, hey, how about we just start saying yes to stuff? She was like, no, I don't think that's what you want. And I agree. It's really nice being able to work with.
Yeah.
Like the creme de la creme directors.
I love it.
Yeah.
But going back to I'm a Virgo, I mean, it's an incredible, like the ending, the rash and that whole, the body rash he gets and just where Cootie ends up. What did you learn about yourself by the end of that shoot?
I guess I learned what I can do, I learned that I can do mental gymnastics on set. There was a whole lot of that going on, like I said, with the forced perspective shooting and the practical. So I think I learned myself in terms of having to trust a different part of my brain while I'm acting, which was crazy because I have a way, I have my tools and my tricks and the things that I've learned for myself that get me to where I need to be. I couldn't use any of that for this. That all had to go away, Usually I'll do maybe 60 seconds, close my eyes, breathe. Like even when everyone's ready. They're like, all right, camera set. Jharrel, you ready? And I'll be like, no. 60 seconds, right? I'll take those 60 seconds and I'll breathe. And after the 60 seconds, director knows I'm ready. They'll say action and I'll go. Couldn't do that this time. Because if I took those 60 seconds, I'd still open my eyes to that X mark that I gotta ignore and to the fact that I can't move my left shoulder any further up because it's gonna look like I'm crashing into the wall. And so no matter how much I tried to center myself and get into the character, I couldn't because there was so much to think about. So for the performance to come out and people will be like, that's nice, that's good, it's good stuff, and me get a few nominations and all that, that just makes me go, all right, nice. So even when I lean on the part of my brain that has to think outside of the character could still be there, which is cool. So I learned that. And then just from Boots, I learned that no idea should go unheard. Like, just say your ideas, even if they don't ever get made, just say them. And like, look, Boots is the living testament to that. So you spend day after day watching someone come up with the wildest ideas and people back them. It makes you want to just not throw away those ideas you have,
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, he is one of a kind, and let's talk about music.
Music, yes.
We all love music and what it does to us,
to the body and the soul.
So, talk about how therapeutic is music for you compared to like acting, because acting is very much that's not your work, right? It's somebody's vision, but.
Yeah, there's definitely therapy to both, but music is the real therapy for me.
Yeah.
That's what it's been for me this whole time too, A lot of people are curious as to, where my mind is with music and what my plan is. And I always give this nonchalant answer because it's for me, the music. It's all for me. I love it so much for me. I do it for me and I do it because of me. No one's ever told me to do it. No one's ever been like, yeah, man, get out there and do it. So it is therapy for me. When you're on set and you're acting, like you said, you're performing things that's not written by you. You also lean on 100 people around you. You also get to wait 7 months and let a group of 20 people make you look pretty, through editing. With music, you got 3 minutes to tell a story that comes from you and comes from your play, your heart and your soul. So when I get to do that, it feels amazing because I'm a terrible social media person. I suck with it. I have been in trouble with my ChatGPT multiple times about it, and I'm trying to get better. And this year, I'm actually actively getting better.
Yeah.
But over the past few years of my life, as opposed to tweeting or putting a story up or going live and explaining where I'm at with maybe the strike or with COVID or with relationships in my life, I just put it all in the music. And so I'm excited because, you know, if there's anybody who really loves what I do and they're curious as to who I am, that's how they'll get to know, is through the music. And for me, my expectations with the music sits just at a pretty place of just for me, you know, as long as I get to do it in a space that feels great, then I'm happy. You know, wherever it goes, it goes. I'll follow it where it has to go because I'm about that. I'm following everything. Yeah. But for me, it's I love the word you use. It's the therapy for me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. To that, like, you know, music is that thing where, or when you're writing, right, you get an idea. Mm-hmm. Like, are you the kind of person that if you get an idea at 2:00 in the morning, you'll wake up and like grab your phone and like,
yes.
or like take me through your like creative music process when it comes to writing music?
It's honestly disturbing how many notes I have, and I'm scrolling through it right now. That just it'll just be sometimes. Let me say something.
Here's a lot of notes. It's a long scroll bar.
There's just thing that just says, I still want to move into that house far away. Right? I thought of that yesterday at 2 a.m. because there is this, there's this person in my life that I spoke to about this, but I'm not in that person's life anymore. So now I have this whole idea of a song where I want to write, and it might be a heartbreak song, but it's a song about this house that's far away. Yeah. So it's not a song that I wrote last night, but it is an idea that I put down. And I have maybe 100 of those, to the point where now I'm trying to get better at making sure I categorize them and I structure them and finish them. Because what I'm so bad at is coming up like, the thing that I said Boots just taught me to do is just get the idea. What I'm bad at is I'll come up with an idea, I'll flesh the idea out a bit, and then the second I stop fleshing the idea out, I'll never go back to the idea. And so maybe a week or two passes, 3 weeks, and I'm writing a song and I'm stuck on what to write about, when really I could just completely finish that idea I had. And so my brain is so weird. It's always constantly thinking of a rhyme, and it's constantly thinking of a song concept. Now I'm doing the work of being militant about finishing these ideas. I think we all have ideas. Everyone has so many ideas. We are a world full of ideas. It's just about how to put it on paper and keep it on paper and flesh it out till it's done, you know? Yeah. And so that's what I'm working on right now. But yes, I just write randomly. I'll write a verse, I'll write a rhyme, a bar, or idea. I love it, you know?
Yeah. No, I love that. My brain is the same as yours. Like, I literally have so many Word docs with a paragraph or a chapter of a novel that I want to write. You know, all different ideas.
And then they're there, right? So when is it? When is that day? When is the day that we sit down and we go backwards? Somebody told me that, I wish I could remember who. But it's that idea of when you open up the next time you want to write, do not come up with a new idea. Don't even dare come up with something new. Don't try to think. Don't anything. Go back into one of your old ideas. Pretend that's your new idea and finish that idea. Yeah. And see how that works, you know?
Just try it.
Because when we write, we're like, all right, what's the new idea? We think that new idea is going to change it all.
It's like, a better idea.
It's the best idea now, and this is a better one than the last. But then you leave that one, and now you have all these other ideas. When really all your ideas are great, especially if you finish them. Yeah. You know?
Do you write music and record it, the ones that you finished, and like just save it somewhere? You don't necessarily like release it and just be like, I've done this. This is my baby. It's for me, and I've got it out.
Yep. I have like 400 songs in my phone.
So technically you have like 10 albums.
I could listen to my own music for the next 10 days straight right now. I don't have to listen to anybody else. I have a lot of songs. Me and music, we have a very funny relationship. You know, I'm going to say this here on this podcast. I'm going to succeed in the music, okay? I'm going to succeed. I feel confident in it. I'm laughing right now, but I promise you I feel confident in it. And when I do, I think a lot of the questions that I get asked will make more sense. My answers will make more sense. I don't even know if that just made sense, but I'm going to say that right now, and somebody's going to come back to this.
it makes sense.
and bring it back, if that makes sense.
So to that, if you got a call from Boots to say, hey, listen, I was listening to the podcast. You want to write a song for the next thing? Would you?
Say that one more time.
So if you got a call from Boots or an email, because he emails you,
Yes,
to
right.
say, can you write a song for this? Would you? So
100%.
the pressure of having to write.
100%. Yeah. I'm in this new, I'm 26 now. Still young, but feel so old at the same time.
You are not.
I know. It's just the things that have happened in my life.
Yeah.
But I feel the most in myself and in my body and in tune with who I am, how I've gotten here, my emotions, what I'm willing to deal with, what I'm not willing to deal with, what I'm scared of and what I'm not scared of. I'm the most understanding. I still have a lot to get to know, but I'm the most grounded in that. And through that, I'm ready to attack and I'm ready to move with vigor and with just nothing but motivation. Because the more I'm understanding myself, the more I'm like, wait, I really like myself. I really enjoy myself and I like who I am. And the second I say I like who I am in the morning, I'm going to have a good day. And I know it. And I know that sounds like some, therapeutic kind of cheesy book thing, but I don't read things. I don't go to therapy. I'm not into signs or anything like that. So trust me, I'm the last person who has like the answers. But for me personally, how I work within myself, when I wake up and I literally feel like I like myself, I have the greatest day because I never say no. And the only times that I have failed at something or slowed myself down is when I said no.
I love it.
Every time I said yes, it's gone well.
Yeah. No, I think we all need to wake up and like ourselves and
just go say yes and just go for it. I don't know.
Amazing advice.
Yeah.
So to wrap it up, before we started, we were talking about you watching fantasy films because now you're at the age where you're like
Where I
ready
can get
to
it.
cover fantasy films.
Yeah. You would think as a kid that you should be into fantasy films as a child and then grow out of it, I think. But no, I'm the opposite.
Why now, though? I'm curious. Like, what was the trigger for you that said it?
That just got me into fantasy films?
Yeah.
I think real life just started to get to real life. Maybe that's what it was. Like, I used to love, my favorite films are crime and thrillers and the things that are real life. And that was me as a kid, maybe because I was just in my own bubble. But I'm not in my bubble anymore, There's a lot of different eyes on me and people in my life. And there's a lot of different experiences that I've gone through that I'm not so fond of based off of who I am and things like that. So I think reality has been a little more... And then COVID, obviously, and the strike and the wars and everything you could talk about with what's going on in the earth and in the world is exhausting. So I think that's what it is. I think I just started watching fantasy like, wow, I could be a dragon. I could be a dragon one day and not think about anything else besides being a dragon, So I think that's what it is, an escape. I think that's what fantasy always was, right, for everybody. I never knew. I never took the time to understand that, but now I do understand it.
You could be a dragon, a wizard, whatever.
Whatever it is. Even the Planet of the Apes movies.
Yeah.
What? Those are hard. Those are really good movies. And that's fantasy, right? Technically.
Yeah. So,
just world building. I've always loved character films, so I didn't realize how serious fantasy films took their characters. I was so distracted by the world that was built and by all the colors and all the art that for me, I lost what I loved in films, like that connection to the character. I didn't believe in it. When I saw Avatar when I was younger, I was like, I don't believe any of this. They're not real, so they can't actually be feeling these things. And so once you kind of get rid of that notion and you fall into the writing and you fall into even the acting that these actors are able to do, you're like, whoa, this is impressive.
Yeah. No, I know. I remember seeing Avatar the first time. I don't get it.
I never got it. I kind of still don't. But I'm going to try it again.
The sequel, The Way of Water, is really... Start with the sequel.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, and then go back?
Because that was just like... That totally took me away into...
So I didn't watch this. I've only seen the one that came out 2008 or something like
Yeah.
that, around then.
Watch this, the one that came out last year.
Yeah.
That might change your
Yeah,
mind.
I haven't seen Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings. I have to do a big
You got a lot
binge.
of work
I have a
to
lot of fantasy to
especially
get
if
into.
you want to be a dragon. You've got a lot of.
I gotta learn how to be a dragon. Shoot.
We're gonna put it out there. Jharrel wants to be a
Jharrel wants
dragon.
to be a dragon.
Anybody casting a certain show that has dragons.
That's me.
But if you got a call, would you take it? Would you be like, I mean, assuming the character, I mean, I don't know, dragons are.
Yeah, I mean, like if I could have been in Game of Thrones, that would have been awesome.
There you go.
You know, were the dragons in Game of Thrones actual actors? No, it was all CGI
That was,
things.
that was CGI.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. I don't know if there was a talking. There weren't any talking dragons.
Not that I'm
okay,
aware.
all right. Who knows?
I don't know.
Who knows?
But maybe Boots is listening and he'll be like, wait, a talking dragon. All right, Jharrel, let's do this.
Hey, I got real close with Cootie to, being a 13-foot tall giant with a big spreading rash on my body. That was pretty close.
It could be like something sprouting and we turn it into a fantasy thing. What's next for you? What are you up to next? I know you're dividing your time between LA and New York.
A lot of... I'm living bi-coastal now, which is a dream of mine, always been a dream, because I get to get this perfect balance of seeing my closest friends and my family, but then also stay busy working.
Yeah.
So every time I'm in New York, I'm having a plate of my mom's food and chilling with my friends. And then every time I'm here, I'm in a studio and, taking meetings for the next acting project. So I'm so happy about that, even though it's so tiring. Oh my gosh, these like 5-6 hour flights. But hey, I call it champagne problems. It's a problem that I can have over a glass of champagne. So I just finished a film called Unstoppable that is going to be under Artist Equity and Amazon. Artist Equity is Matt Damon and Ben Affleck's company, and it's a beautiful true story about a man named Anthony Robles, who was a collegiate wrestler back in 2011, and he won the NCAA championships, and he was undefeated his entire senior year. And that all sounds cool, but it sounds even cooler when you realize he was born with one leg. And so he chose wrestling as a man born with one leg. He was missing a limb, and he chose to wrestle, and he absolutely dominated. And it's about him, and it's his underdog story. And I'm really excited because I'm playing him, and Jennifer Lopez will play his mother in it, and Don Cheadle and Michael Pena will play his coach. Will play his coaches. Bobby Cannavale is in it, and so it's just it's definitely an army of a cast. And then to be, it's directed by Billy Goldenberg, and he is, I don't even know how many Oscars he's won for editing.
Right.
So, if there's anybody on a set that's not a director that you can trust to direct the project, it's an editor, because it's their job to really make the movie what it is. And so there's just so much excitement all around for this, because it just was a great team. It's a beautiful story, and everybody involved cared about it so much. So not sure when it comes out, but yeah, it's a thing. It's a big thing, and that's the next project I'm coming in.
We love an underdog story too.
It's a nice underdog story, and I love a true story. I love it. Again, this was something that challenged me. I'm excited to go on a press run about that, because this was the most physically challenging role I ever did, and spending time with him and having to have that pressure of telling someone's story was that challenge again. So I said a no a ton of times again until this came around. So I'm really happy about this one.
You're going to make me cry at the end of that again.
I hope so.
All right.
I sure hope so.
That's Jerome, star of I'm a Virgo, now streaming on Prime Video. After the break, we talk to Fargo writer, director, executive producer Noah Hawley. From Los Angeles, this is the Award Circuit Podcast. And we're back. It's the Variety Award Circuit Podcast, and I'm Michael Schneider. Fargo Season 5, which premiered last November, stars Juno Temple as Dorothy Lyon, a Minnesota housewife whose dark secrets are about to be revealed now that ruthless North Dakota Sheriff Roy Tillman, played by John Hamm, has found her. Roy is a rancher, preacher, and constitutional lawman who believes that only he is above the law.
Seriously? Do you want a towel, or?
Does my discussing matters of state in moist repose bother you? Now, what is it you wanted to discuss?
Well, like I said, we're new in town. We thought we'd come open a collegial dialogue. Maybe let you know we're looking into the practices of your office.
Very unorthodox practices, possibly illegal.
Illegal, according to who? Maybe you weren't paying attention, but I am the law around here.
So you said.
Removable only by the governor or my constituents, who love me, by the way, because I say what I want, and I do as I please, and I know the difference between right and wrong.
Don't you mean legal and illegal?
Well, did you know that in North Dakota it is illegal for a charitable group to hold more than 2 poker games a year? And similarly, it is illegal to keep an elk in a sandbox in your own backyard, I shit you not. Now, if you were to own a tavern and serve beer and pretzels at the same time, I could arrest you. And in Waverly, the law forbids horses from sleeping in bathtubs. You beginning to get the drift here? I'm a sheriff of the American Constitution, bound by duty, blood, and tradition to enforce what is right and to prosecute what is wrong. And the law, my friends, has very little to do with it.
Juno Temple's character, Dot, is at the center of this season's Fargo, set in 2019, and from the very first episode, viewers will see that she's not someone to mess with. That includes also going toe-to-toe with her mother-in-law, Lorraine, played by Jennifer Jason Leigh. Lorraine is a powerful businesswoman who made her fortune as the Queen of Debt, gathering her riches from others' misfortunes. And as Lorraine, Leigh gets some of the season's best lines. The idea of debt fuels a lot of this season's storylines in action, and at the same time, Hawley opens this season by defining Minnesota nice to viewers, something that he says was rooted at the very core of Fargo from the moment that Joel and Ethan Coen first made the original film. I caught up with Hawley as he stopped by Los Angeles during a break in filming his FX series Alien in Thailand. Since he's constantly bouncing between living in Austin, shooting overseas in places like Calgary and Bangkok, I began by asking him if he's feeling a little bit dizzy.
You know, it's the sad state of our business, that no one wants to make anything in America anymore, right? Atlanta, you can go to Atlanta.
Although they're pulling back on those tax credits,
right?
So who knows what's going to happen there.
You know, you can shoot in New York, maybe. You can shoot in L.A., maybe, if you get the incentive. But even so, you really need a studio that's willing to spend the premium to work in those spots. Or you spin the big roulette wheel of where on earth is there a soundstage?
Yeah.
And which is a crazy way to make anything in 2024, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Netflix has been building sound stages, but really, shouldn't you just pick a place to make stuff and build facilities? Isn't that, and then own the facility? Like it seems a little crazy that they go, okay, well, so you could shoot in Belfast, or you could shoot in Hungary, or you could shoot in Bangkok.
Yeah,
and those are your 3 options, right? And you're like, well.
And you're like, well, my show doesn't take place in any of those locations.
Right. These 2 are creatively wrong. This other one is really interesting, but isn't that super far away, Bangkok, you know? But you know, if it's creatively right and, you know, and it's an adventure, and at the end of the day, all that's left is what's on the screen. And so, you know, so if it's right, it's right.
Yeah. Well, so you're shooting Alien right now in Thailand.
Yes.
Are you there full time, or what's your schedule like?
I'm heading over next week, and I can't be there the whole time. It's not really my job, the showrunner job, to be there the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, because once you really get into post, especially on a visual effects heavy show, you know, that's where you have to live as the person who's cutting the episodes and you know, but I sort of gamed it so that, because last year I was able to get started. I'm directing the first hour, but I wasn't able to finish because of the strikes. But you know, we've broken up our schedule in in an interesting way, which is that Dana Gonzalez, who's my DP, who's directing for me, he's starting up. So he's directing now on the second hour, because, if I go a little later, then I can be there in the middle, and I can prep the next director and everything. And, for a long lead like we have with all the visual effects work, you're not really racing to deliver these episodes in the same way. So, we can shoot them a little bit out of order in order to make the process function better for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
that's an in the weeds answer to where I am right now and where I'm going.
Exactly. Where are you in the world? So, and a lot of times, I'm sure right now your brain is. We were talking about this before. 12 hours ahead, since that's where everything is. So you're talking to everyone back there, and it's nighttime.
Yeah, it's it's always a little disorienting as to what time it is where, and I'm in a 24-hour workday right now because, of course, I get up in Austin and I have a full workday, and then they wake up and then their day starts, and so I have production meetings at like 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. or something. So, on the one level, I'm happy to get over there and just kind of not do that, just have a work day and be able to sleep at night is a nice treat.
Yeah. And in between working on your new projects like Alien, you can still look back at Fargo season 5.
Yes.
And as we enter Emmy season,
right,
a chance to really reunite with that cast, which and the folks who made this, which I mean, so speaking of like going on location, you've spent a lot of time in Calgary over the past 20 years.
I have.
So it's that at least it's in the region. At least it's sort of in that sort of North Midwest sort of vibe.
Yes.
So it fits in perfectly with the look and feel of what you've wanted to create over the
we've
years.
done 4 out of the 5 seasons in Calgary. Year 4, we were in Chicago because it was a period piece, and you couldn't really find anything in Canada that looks like Kansas City in 1950.
Yeah, you didn't need as much snow.
Yeah, although, Chicago, you got no complaints if you're looking for winter.
True.
But yeah, Calgary, it's been a real home. I mean, when we got there in 2013, they were still mostly making Westerns, and we came in with trying to make something unique and elevated, and it was so exciting to find so many great artists and crafts people who maybe had been a little under challenged by the work, and to say no, good enough isn't good enough. We're gonna raise the premium TV bar here, and they're so happy every time we go back, and it's nice. You see the same faces, and even though every year is a completely different thing, you're making it with what becomes a family of a kind.
Yeah. And by now they know sort of the tone, they know the vibe. It's maybe a different story, maybe a different cast, a different time setting, but it's still Fargo.
Yeah, which is an interesting thing. I mean, within the first 5 minutes of watching this season or any season, you're like, well, it's completely different, but somehow it's the same. Which is always the goal, and some of it obviously is the accent, but it's just a tone of voice, I feel like.
Yeah, and obviously you started with the Coen brothers, but you've created sort of your own template of what the Fargo TV show is. How do you describe that now? What is that tone? What is sort of what makes Fargo Fargo?
Well, I mean, it sort of hasn't changed. When I went into pitch FX the first time in 2012, and I said, well, look, it can't be a TV show, because what made the movie so special was at the end of it, her husband got the 3-cent stamp, and 2 more months and she's going to have the baby, and tomorrow's going to be a normal day. And it says it's a true story. So, you can't really have her wake up tomorrow and it's another crazy Coen Brothers case, right? But why is the movie called Fargo? It takes place in Minnesota, right? Except that Fargo, the word Fargo is evocative of a place, right? What Joel and Ethan described once as Siberia with family restaurants, and now after the movie, the word Fargo is evocative of basically a type of story, right? Where truth is stranger than fiction, and so I always thought of it as sort of a state of mind, Fargo,
Yeah.
and the elements that are available to me of randomness, coincidence, synchronicity, because you're saying it's real, and then the philosophical underpinnings of their work from things like A Serious Man or Lebowski, or, it's just, and there has to be a crime, right? But it doesn't have to be any specific kind of crime, and there have to be these elements to it, but they can be, every time you can do a totally different thing with it and yet somehow make it the same.
Yeah. No, it's heightened normalcy.
Exactly.
And this season opens at a school board meeting.
Right.
It's again sort of like any school board meeting that we've all been at, and to see sort of the small decisions that Dot makes, Juno Temple's character, that sort of like lead to everything that happens. This sort of these decisions and this moment in time that unfolds, and you quickly see the impact of some of those decisions.
Yeah, and in making it a contemporary story, I mean, set in 2019, I really wanted to look at this idea of Minnesota nice, right, which Joel and Ethan had kind of defined in the movie Fargo, which is basically people who don't know how to be anything but polite, and so as their stress level goes up, they don't know how to express themselves, and so they can't bend, they just break, But that's based on the concept that most people are passively aggressive, right? But there's nothing passive about the aggression we see in our country right now. Nobody's pretending to be nice anymore. So how do you get that decency, that basic decency, that social contract? How do we get that back?
Yeah.
Which is a big part of, Dot's journey, right? Is she wants to live a certain way. She wants to be that decent person, loving marriage, raising her daughter, and the world keeps coming at her to say, no, we're going to force you to live in this other world, and she refuses to live in that world.
Yeah. No, her tone is fascinating throughout. I mean, she's Juno Temple kicks ass in this show.
Yeah.
And yet with this calm, sort of cool demeanor throughout, she seems to always be in control of her situation, even when we know she's not. But we kind of have this sense that it's going to be okay because she has a handle on things.
Yeah, and that's the challenge. And Juno and I had a lot of conversations about it. I was like, well, you're the tiger.
Yeah. Right?
The tiger doesn't cry. And the tiger doesn't give up. And so, I think that we're always in Fargo saying it's grounded and real, but you have to know what movie you're in, right? It's and the Brits are usually great at that because they can do reality, but a little bit heightened. And Juno was great at it too. But there were certainly moments throughout where, she's in this hospital. She's been institutionalized by her mother-in-law. These guys are coming for her. They're coming for her husband. She puts him in the bathroom, locks the door and says, don't come out until I come back. And he says, I love you 3. And it's emotional for her, but you don't have time for that. You don't have time to feel the feeling. That's a rocking chair feeling you can feel later when it's all over. Right now, you have to stay focused. And that way, when the emotion comes finally, it's so satisfying to the audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
We respect her because she never gave up and she never surrendered to it. And at her lowest point, where she's like, she's got a rifle that she stole and a hat that she stole, and she's outside in the snow and these guys are looking for her, and she's like, if I don't make it back, and Jennifer Jason Leigh says, no daughter of mine, and you see the emotion of it. It's so much more powerful than if she'd had big feelings the whole way through.
I like that you mention the Brits and sort of the British influence on this, since the humor, especially in Fargo, has always been very sort of that British dry, almost Monty Python, sort of down to the character names, which are straight out of sort of British farce. And you regularly employ comedians in these roles, like Dave Foley this season. And, how influential is British humor, or sort of that? Were you into Monty Python? Like, what's sort of your humor?
Yeah, it's very influential on me. I don't know about Joel and Ethan, but it's very influential on me. And when I was 10, 11, 12 is when Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy was on. It was on NPR. Right. Mm-hmm. And that Douglas Adams was a huge influence on me. My father had spent time over in England in the 50s and, had brought back a bunch of the Goon Show records, the Peter Sellers and Spike Milligan. And I grew up listening to those really absurdist radio plays. And then, of course, Monty Python came along. And so all of those elements of that sort of dryness, the absurdity of it, the sort of focus, they're a little bit mean, but not unkind, But then on the other side, I also have the long tradition of Jewish humor. And there's some interesting similarities in a way. And that's the Coen's tone of voice, I feel like marries up well with the British sensibility, especially when it lands in the Midwest and that kind of like stiff upper lip, keep a smile on your face even though you're unhappy thing. It's just sort of the perfect marriage.
The implosion of all of that together is
right. I mean, there's sort of nothing funnier than watching John Cleese in Fawlty Towers just spiral, just build over the course of the hour until he finally explodes and has this screaming rage, and his wife is like, "Get back to work, dear," and he's like, "Right," and he goes back to, you know what I mean? It's like, so those elements are definitely in my rearview mirror and inform a lot of this.
Yeah, and that's what I've even going back to season 1 when you had Bob Odenkirk and those folks who can like walk that line between comedy and drama so well.
Right.
And John Hamm has become sort of the poster child for that. He's done some of the darkest work over his career, but also some of the funniest when he's been on Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt or playing these hysterically evil characters, and he seemed just right for Roy Tillman.
He's perfect. I mean, John Hamm is a Muppet. When you hang out with him, he has one of those faces, those elastic faces, and he's game for anything. He understands the comedy instinctually, but he's also the straight man at the same time. It's a really interesting thing because and that's why I wanted him to use him this way, because I wasn't asking him to play Gary Cooper. Mm-hmm. I was asking him to play this character who you think is Gary Cooper and then turns out to be, pierced nipple, Tiger King America, right, constitutional sheriff. That John doesn't have a lot of process. So you don't spend a lot of time talking to John about here's the character and how we're going to do this. We had a meal before we started, and he said, I have an idea for the voice. I was like, great. But we didn't talk about it. He didn't audition it for me. Mm-hmm. I don't require that. When Bokeem Woodbine showed up and did that crazy affect on mm-hmm. day one, I directed him on day one, and I thought, what is this? This is amazing. Jennifer Jason Leigh showed up doing her William F. Buckley. Yeah. The actor choices are always, it's so exciting when Billy Bob showed up with that haircut. And I thought, okay, we're making the same show.
Yeah, yeah. Do you find that people they show up taking more risks because they know this is sort of Fargo, and it's expected that they need to kind of do something unique or original, or How are they usually sort of asking you for permission to take some wild swings, or
sometimes? The more we do this, I feel like people can come in a little intimidated by the work that's come before, and feeling like they've got to live up to those standards. But I also hear like Jeff Donovan thought he was going to get fired after the first day because I really didn't have any notes for him. So he thought, oh, he must hate what I did. But in fact, the opposite. And he, in order to get to the Minnesota accent, he's from Massachusetts, and the vowel sounds are sort of oppositely formed in the mouth. So he had to hold his jaw as he was rehearsing to get the Minnesota accent. And that became this rigidity throughout his whole body where he walked without bending his knees. And I was amazed by the transformation that he went through. And I was happy, so I didn't give him any notes. And he did. He told me later, he was like, oh, I thought I was going to get fired. Because he had made a bold choice. Yeah. And I love that.
Do you have sort of a favorite heavy from all the years of Fargo? One that sort of still in your mind kind of terrifies you, or
David Thewlis is such a tremendous actor, first of all, but what he represented in a really Faustian way, it stays with me. Bokeem was a man sort of out of time and trapped in a world that he was never going to be able to succeed in fully. But there was something about David and his sad Willy Loman trench coat and his teeth and that was really unsettling. And he's so good with language. He just, I wrote a scene where he has to put his genitals into a coffee mug. You know what I mean? And the delight that he took in these things. But he's also someone who, when he sits next to Ewan and says the problem is not that there is evil in the world, the problem is that there is good, because otherwise who would care? It's really powerful coming from him. So yeah, he really stuck with me.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, from this season, tell me a little bit about Munch. And
yes,
because probably your most controversial character of the season, and I see plenty of debate online on how supernatural is it, how literal should we take the fact that he's 500 years old,
right?
So what's your answer to that? How literal is it versus how much of it is just sort of a creative flourish? Like, who is this character?
Well, to be fair to the show, there's always been this element in it.
Yeah, there's always a little bit of a supernatural,
and it's born out of the Coens' work. It's born out of the elemental nature of some of their characters, starting with the lone biker of the apocalypse, right? Mm-hmm. Starting with this guy who rides around with the bronze baby shoes, and he's got the Woody Woodpecker tattoo that somehow Nick Cage also has. Mm-hmm. It's never explained. And you just feel like, well, this guy's always been out there in the American wilderness. And that was the same with Anton Chigurh. There's something about Anton Chigurh where you feel like this guy's not mortal. There's something elemental about him. And so even in our first season, I remember in the first hour when Martin Freeman, Patrick, the Vern, the cop, has been killed, and the cop and Molly's at the door, and Billy goes into the basement, and then Martin Freeman runs down, and Billy's just vanished. He's not in the basement. Mm-hmm. And my friends at MGM said, well, should we show an open window or something? I mean, how did he get out of the basement? And I was like, exactly. How did he get out of the basement? Right. There's that element that can flow through the Coen brothers' work. And so, I always felt like it's like David Thewlis. That guy is eternal. Yeah. Whether it's literally that guy or what he represents, he's eternal. And here I was interested in this idea since we were wrestling with the subject of debt, the theme of debt, this practice of sin eating that was another way that rich people tried to get out of paying their debts, by, you find someone who's poor, and if they eat a meal off your corpse, they're accepting your sins, and they go to hell and you go to heaven. And so I like that idea of Sam's character having that experience, and this idea that in the moment of selling his soul, he stopped having a soul and he stopped having an I, a me. And so he never says I or me, right. Or he's always a
third person.
Yeah. And he doesn't own anything. He sort of moves through the world, and if he sees a cigarette on the ground, he picks it up. If he, when he shows up at your house to kidnap you, he doesn't have a ski mask you would buy at a store. He found a sack and put it on his head. And I mean, for me, I'm happy for it to be literal. I mean, I had a UFO in season 2.
Yes, you did.
It's not like out of the blue for people,
yeah.
But I think that those elements too, that they make it more allegorical in a way, because yes, we're telling this literal story, but we're also telling you a larger story that it's getting harder and harder to make something timeless.
Yeah.
Right. And that's always my goal, is to say, well, you could watch Fargo this year, you could watch it in 5 years, you could watch it in 25 years, and it would still work completely as a story. And it would also be a conversation about America that is rooted in this moment, but also it's we go through these cycles.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I was fine with it, partly because you interpret it the way you want to interpret it. So
right.
Maybe he is this immortal, maybe he is this 500-year-old sin eater, or maybe he's just this creepy, scary guy who, enjoys, is a little bit of a
right.
Psychotic,
the whole point of A Serious Man is the line, accept the mystery. Right? You've got the D-book at the beginning where you don't know, the wife stabs this guy in the shtetl and he walks out laughing, and you're like, is he alive or is he dead? There's that Schrodinger's cat element. And I think that sense for the audience of like, well, is this real or is this not real? I'm comfortable with you asking those questions.
What's interesting about the final episode, so spoiler alerts if people haven't seen the finale, is watching that and seeing everything wrap up midway through that episode and realizing, looking at the clock, well, wait a second. There's still like 20 minutes left in this episode. Where are we going here? What are we just going to see Dot and her family just have dinner?
Right.
So it's kind of an interesting pace to do that. Also, very satisfying in a way to see what happens to John Hamm's character. What was sort of your thought process in giving sort of a little bit of a satisfying end to what happens to him, and Jennifer Jason Leigh sort of bringing down the hammer on him, which,
right.
Throughout the season, we don't know how we feel about this mother-in-law character,
right.
Especially as sort of the debt collector, as, one of the problems that you talk about in debt. Ultimately, she's a little bit of a hero, and we see the comeuppance, very satisfying, maybe one of the more satisfying moments in Fargo. What was sort of the thought process in giving us sort of that real sort of satisfying conclusion to that portion of the story?
Well, whenever you have a crime story, you're faced with the concept of justice, right? What is justice? Because people want justice. They want to feel like something was wrong and it's been made right.
Mm-hmm.
And that concept, I've wrestled with that concept over the seasons, and the third year with David Thewlis, which ends with a question mark. It's unresolved. But knowing that there might not be literal justice, I introduced this idea of this sort of like spiritual bowling alley, right, with Ray Wise's character, and the story about the Rabbi Nachman, and this idea that, well, even if you're not going to face consequences in this life, they're coming.
Mm-hmm.
And as Lamorne's character says to Joe Keery this year, he's like, you think they're not going to come, the consequences, but they're almost here. The tragedy of this season is really what happens to Lamorne, and where as John loses the battle, he's able to take one more life.
Right.
And it's not something that I wanted to do, but I always feel that if we're saying this is a true story, then the real world just doesn't end with all the heroes victorious and all the villains defeated. It's ugly, and good people are lost and bad people get away and all of that. And so I did want to resolve it for the audience and for John to say, like, his punishment has just begun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for all of us, you know, who wrestle in America with the idea of a life for a life, etc., this is going to be worse. You know what I mean? And this power that she has. One of my favorite moments of John's performance the whole season is when she talks about the Federalist Society, and he's like, "What's that? Something with books?" He just has no idea the forces of capitalism that are working against him, because he still thinks that if my gun is bigger, I win.
Right. Yeah, he's still kind of cosplaying it all.
Yeah.
So what's funny about, thankfully, Lamorne's okay. I see him on billboards all over town promoting a bank, which is kind of funny given the themes of this season. I think maybe there was something also satisfying in the justice because of, you know, the timing of 2019, what John Hamm's character represents in where this country is going, and, you know, him as a little bit of a stand-in for MAGA America and Trumpism a little bit too, and where things seem to be going with this country. I don't know. That's
I mean, it's really, in my mind, a society is a place where we are responsible to each other, and we don't always get exactly what we want as individuals, but out of that comes something for the collective good. And the people who reject that, as Jennifer Jason Leigh says, you're fighting for your right to be a baby. Mm-hmm. Everything you want with no responsibility to anyone else.
Yeah, it's a great line, great delivery by her too.
Yeah, she's the best. That sense of justice, I think there's a large portion of, I think everyone in America wants justice. They just have a sort of a different concept of it. But I don't think that scene with John would be as strong if we just ended there. I think what happens afterwards with Monk coming to Juno's house and the scenes that unfold from that, which are not, I would imagine, the scenes you expected when you saw him sitting on that sofa. I think that's what really cements the whole story.
Yeah, there's this calm tenseness that was just fascinating to sit there and you're kind of watching her negotiate. You're watching, the other two who seem to sort of understand what's going on, but not quite. But
right.
they're the epitome of that Minnesota nice again.
Yeah,
in sort of handling this. And
well, I thought about the scene from No Country where Javier shows up at Kelly MacDonald's house. He's killed Brolin, or Brolin is dead, and he shows up and she finds him in her house and she says, I knew this wasn't over. And he basically says, I promised your husband I would kill you. And she's like, that makes no sense. And he tries to make her choose which side of the coin, and she's like, the coin has nothing to do with this, it's all you. And then, he walks out, he's killed her, and I thought, well, that's consequences, right? That's and here we have the satisfying moment where Munch hands her the rifle and says the tiger is free now, but that story's not over. And so she comes home and finds him there a year later. We're going to finish our business now. And the expectation, I think, for that scene, and maybe even when I sat down to write that scene, was that it was his scene and he was going to control this, and it was going to be really suspenseful and tense, and how was she going to get out of it, and the final thing. And I just thought, you know what? I want her to say, I'm not going to be in your scene. I'm going to make you be in my scene. Mm-hmm. And my scene is we're halfway to dinner and it's a school night.
Right. We're making Bisquick.
Right. And so that turn of her saying, I'm not going to live in your story. You're going to live in my story. And in my story, we listen to each other and we take care of each other and we forgive each other. Right. And I think the power of that, because I am wrestling like all of us with like, how do we get past this?
Yeah.
Split where one side and another side, and I hate you and you hate me. And are we just going to do that now forever? Or can we find a way to say, right, we did some things you didn't like, you did some things we didn't like, but we got to get past it.
Let's break bread together.
Yeah. And you know, isn't that how we were taught throughout history that you make peace.
Yeah, and that's how we used to do it. So
yeah, and you know, I think it's really resonated with people because they didn't expect this. I mean, arguably naive, but certainly hopeful ending to this story.
Yeah, which I kind of dug. I kind of like there was that nice hopefulness, and again, no one could do it better than Juno Temple.
Right.
You know, so
it's true.
She will save us all. So I know every time I see you, of course, I have to ask. Thoughts about what's next? Are we going to take another several year break? Is this the classic Curb Your Enthusiasm thing now, or eventually you'll have another season of Fargo in mind? You'll go to FX and MGM and say, okay, I got it. Let's do it.
I mean, isn't it great that I can do that? Isn't that
kind of nice?
Yeah, it's, you know, I had two writers who wrote for me on the first couple of seasons of Fargo. You know, they're running this For All Mankind show, and I had dinner with them recently, and they're starting season 5 after 5 years, and I was starting season 5 after 10 years, and I thought I like my pace much better than that pace, because of course these stories are not continuations. They're imagined from whole cloth, and they all require 10 hours of multiple characters on a collision course. Thematically, they have to be very different, and it takes a while to build that up. That said, I love telling stories in that state of mind. Obviously, Alien is a huge priority for both for me and for FX. And the scale of it requires a lot longer than it does to make a Fargo. And so, I don't know. I'm certainly game to keep going. I'm just a victim of my success in terms of I have to wait on that because I have this other bigger thing that I'm doing right now.
No, and it's So what can you tell us? What are you excited for us to see, to learn? What's going on with Alien?
Well, you know, I've had this opportunity to reinvent famous movies. I did it with Fargo. I wrote a Star Trek movie. I have this opportunity with Alien now.
So this is your thing now?
No, it's not. I do other things, but it is
a wild coincidence.
I mean, look, certainly in the age of IP, it's not a terrible skill to have, but a big part of my approach is I just try to figure out what the original movie made me feel and why, and then to try to create those feelings in the audience by telling you a completely different story. Right. So the one thing that you're not going to see is the movie Alien or the movie Aliens copied.
Right. Because it still exists. Those movies are still out there and you can watch them.
Yeah. And just remaking a thing is certainly not the best use of my time. But the ideas that are in it, the feelings that are in it, the characters and the dynamics and the relationships that define those first two movies are really interesting to me. Not just because it's not just a monster movie, right? It's humanity trapped between its primordial past and the AI future, and they're both trying to kill us.
Mm-hmm.
So I find those elements really fascinating. And the other sort of crazy thing, 6 movies in, is how little mythology that there is to that alien universe. We have no idea really what Earth is like, and the government of Earth and space travel. They're very contained films. Certainly the first 3 or 3. I mean, the fourth one takes place way in the future, and the first 2 take place way in the past. But that's really liberating for me as a storyteller to really begin to think, okay, well, if we are coming to Earth, what's it like there, and how does it fit into the alien aesthetic, which is so specific, and how would that world work, and the fact that the both of the first 2 movies are really blue collar stories. It's either space truckers or grunts, and Paul Reiser is middle management at best, and how does the world work in whatever year it is, and what are the power dynamics, and who are the little guys, and what is the technology, and all that's super exciting to be able to define in a franchise that's as old as it is.
No, that is fascinating. So creating this universe that you have sort of the free reign to sort of create this canon, I suppose.
Yes.
And this will now be, I assume, Aliens canon going forward, or?
I mean, who gets to decide? I mean, they've asked me to do this thing, and I'm doing this thing, and no one has yet told me I can't do this thing. And, I mean, I always felt like when I did Legion, and I always thought it's more interesting. I mean, if you say, all right, I'm going to tell this comic book story and it's going to be issues 135 through 139, it's the Dark Phoenix story or whatever. But because you have to change it and fit it into the box, you're always going to be changing things, and people are always going to be mad, right? But I think, like, isn't it nice if I say, here are these characters you love, here's this world you love, I'm just going to tell you some new stories, right? I'm not going to mess with what you've already seen. I'm not going to try to change what you've already seen. I'm just going to tell you new stories in a world that you love.
Yeah. No, all this ambitious IP that you tackle. Next, I just want you to take like Police Academy movies or Revenge of the Nerds or something, and just reinvent something so flimsy from the 80s. It'd be hysterical to see the Noah Hawley take on the Police Academy trilogy.
I'll put it in the notebook. I mean, I'm a lucky man, right? Who gets to do Fargo and Alien in the same year?
Yeah.
It's I don't take it for granted at all that FX allows me to play in these very different tones of voice, and that there is no genre that they don't think I can do, and it's really it makes me very, very happy to not be pigeonholed.
And by the way, FX, now that it's more of a streaming brand than a linear, advertiser supported brand, I'm sure you're able to do a lot more in terms of content that maybe you couldn't in say those first seasons of Fargo, where was there still kind of a language limitation?
Yes.
There were certain things that you couldn't do back in the day that now you can.
You can. I mean, I've never been a gratuitous person in terms of language or nudity or any of that. I don't find that terribly interesting in and of itself. But I'm not restricted really now, and so you can use the occasional curse word in places if it's the right thing for that moment, or it's funny or whatever. And I mean, the other thing that I always try to do is to make the show for the price that the money they're giving me.
Yeah.
And to be responsible about it and to accept the constraints, to say, okay, well, if I had more money, I might reshoot this scene, or I might add days to the sequence, or I might, who knows what, but I don't have that money. So if I can't reshoot this, or how can I re-edit it? If the footage is not going to give me ever what I intended originally, what can it give me? And some really amazing things come out of those constraints. And I just feel like, responsible.
Yeah.
It's my word. If I sign a budget and say I can deliver it for this price, I won't sign it if I don't think I can do it. And if I sign it, I'm going to do it to the best of my ability.
Yeah. No, I think that's where a lot of creativity comes out is sort of, having those parameters that you have to go with. And
yeah. And it doesn't mean that you have to compromise artistically necessarily. And I certainly think that in this new Hollywood reality that we're in, if you can be wildly creative and wildly efficient, then you're going to do just fine.
So this alien journey is going to be fascinating because you're shooting, obviously, but then, like you said, the VFX, I imagine that's going to take quite a while. So what's kind of your ETA? What does your next year look like?
Yeah, I mean, we're shooting through the summer, and then we go into post, and it takes the time that it takes, and FX is trying to figure out where to place it on the schedule, and they'll tell me when they need it, and you can always do things faster. It just costs more, so we'll see where they want to put it. I know there's an Alien movie that's coming out this summer. I haven't seen it. I'm excited to see it.
But clearly it's not going to have any impact on
There's no
your
connection
series.
between... They had a completely separate process than we had. I think it's designed as a standalone Alien film. I don't think they're inventing any new mythology, but certainly if the... I mean, it just seems to make sense to me that if they're going to make more movies and I'm going to make the show at a certain point, we should all agree on what the world is.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that will really whet people's appetite, to get us to when the show comes out, and it's.
You're going to watch the film like the aliens dance in this new installment.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, it's the frog from the WB.
Yes. That's Noah Hawley, the brains behind FX's Fargo. Catch up on season 5, now streaming on Hulu. And that's it for this edition of Variety's Award Circuit Podcast. Aaron Greenewald edited this episode, and Michael Schneider is the producer. Be sure to subscribe to the Award Circuit Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you download podcasts. Also, head on over to Variety.com and click on the Award Circuit tab to find the latest awards predictions and key races, as well as your daily fix of news, analysis, and reviews. For Jazz Tanke, Emily Longaretta, and Clayton Davis, I'm Michael Schneider, and we'll see you on the circuit.